I did. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's like right.
Yeah.
If you need a reason to go to Florida, Lake Road to Fort Lauderdale, Tuesday, the airfare is $49. $49. Well, so am I. This Friday when I'm going, it's 87. That's right. And then another time to Fort Lauderdale. So if you're just flying to Orlando, you can charge $49. Take a high-speed train, it's $80. The thing is, go to the airport, have to go to your online is over 100. Have to go to the airport. It took me 15 minutes. 15 minutes to get it. They open at 10 and close at 2. That's the other time. Yeah. 4-hour window. But you that kind of money, you're better off. I can believe it. If you lose your rate, go Monday or Tuesday, you get $49. $49. I said, I can't go because I have an appointment on Wednesday and I have a late appointment on Tuesday. Well, Friday for 37 or 87 or other. I said, okay. I'll take it. Yeah, I just check all this out. Yeah. Well, she can fly from also probably the same amount of money. But you have to book like a week in advance and it's really flexible on dates. Well, you're flying at it, you're flying spirit. So it's not a luxury. Right. Call me in order for the allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ross, would you like to start us off with a roll call?
Sure. In tonight's attendance, we have Representative Ian Resnick, Butch Bellis, Matt Smith, and myself, Eric Ross.
Okay, you've all had a chance to look over the meeting minutes from the January 14th meeting. How would we like to proceed? Yes, have a chance to look at them.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All right, moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is public comment. Laura?
Good evening. If you don't know, I'm Scott Gongware, Ligonier Township President. Just a couple of comments about a couple of your agenda items tonight. The first item, I know you're going to talk about the new police building, and I know Mr. Sullenberger is going to take care of that because he has in the past. But one thing I wanted to point out is this flyer that went out, which was just a survey funded by the Ligonier Valley Police Foundation. It was a survey for a concept to create a new police station. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I want to talk about it because at the last supervisors meeting, Mr. Resnick brought up at the very end of the meeting that there's false information on here. He referred to the section where it says this vision is expected to be funded through grants and other funding sources at no cost to the taxpayers. Again, this is a concept. That's what we're trying to achieve. It was irresponsible to make that statement because you didn't know the answer to that. And you did it at the end of the meeting, so no one even had the ability to have public comment to refute what you had to say. This is just recasting of the building concept that was put together several years ago that didn't make it. The hope is to bring that back. The hope is to find a site. And the hope is to convince the donor that was in place before to support it. The concept, and I know you had a discussion with Mr. Sullenberger, who in a transparent way decided to meet with you and Mr. Beaufort at your request. At that meeting, I believe he asked, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, if necessary, would the township and or borough consider contributing towards this? And that discussion went back and forth. That wasn't a requirement. That is not a requirement. So this concept, as stated, is factual. The way this is being pursued is at no cost to the taxpayers. Most philanthropies that get in big projects like this, they will look for other partners, other philanthropies, other grantors, other contributors. Look at the Ligonier Diamond. That's the same thing that happened in there. It was a partnership with other philanthropies to make something beautiful. That's what this concept is all about. And that's what was asked of the people that received it. Would you be in favor if this is how it comes together? We certainly also stated the reason for the needs. That information didn't come from me. I'm not a police officer. It came from police officers as to why you would want a separate standalone facility. So I think we just need to be careful before we state in public, in fact, that something like this is not truthful because it paints a bad light on something that is positive. Secondly, I know you're going to talk about the code of conduct for the charter agreement. This thing has gone round and round, and I just hope tonight that you can talk about it and come to some agreement that in order to improve the charter, the code of conduct that was provided at this police commission several times. It had teeth to it, it was not ambiguous, and it provided a level of accountability that any of the commissioners would ask the police officers to have. I know some of you are talking about reform. Start reforming yourself first, and let's get something that has some meat in it in this code of conduct. That's all I have.
Hello. Greg Sullenberger. I wasn't necessarily going to stand up tonight, but since that was mentioned and I was kind of called out as a liar, I would like to ask Mr. Resnick what was misleading in that flyer, please.
When you and I met, Mr. Buford, it was 90-10. And we haven't seen anything in writing yet. We haven't seen anything at all that clearly spells this out. So in the interest of transparency, and this is good that we're talking about this. I don't believe I was being irresponsible. I was just trying to bring light to this so that we would have a conversation. And I don't see John Buford here. But we met with you and it was 90-10.
What was 90-10, sir?
The division of the cost, how this was going to be paid for. 90% from the foundation, 10% from township and the borough.
And we discussed numbers, and you specifically said a number.
Well, I just threw a number out. So let's say the building costs $4 million. For lack of, let's throw that out. Let's say the building costs $4 million. 10% of $4 million is $400,000, and we are in an 80-10 situation with how, 80-20 situation as to how that's paid for. And that was my concern, that 80% of $400,000 is $320,000. And since we haven't seen anything in writing yet, and maybe it will come out, hopefully it will come out, but I object to being called irresponsible for trying to bring things out in the public.
Okay, I asked you what was misleading in that. We haven't gotten to that yet. What was misleading in that form that my foundation sent out, please? And $4 million was never brought up, but we can get to that later.
Well, it was a discrepancy. The postcard that went out said no cost to the taxpayer. And when we met, you and I and John Buford, it was 90%, 10%.
Okay, so instead of saying, I'm just throwing out a number, how about we say the facts? You said I can't support 160 of 200,000, which would be the 80-20 or 90-10, but I believe I could support $100,000 to a township, correct?
What I said was I want a 50-50 split with the borough.
Okay, well, that's a lie, but you didn't say you wanted a 50-50 split. You said, if I have to put in 160 from the township, I don't believe I can support that.
I don't want to
Okay, but the number that we were talking about was 200, so 100,000 would have been 50-50, correct? That's half of 200. Okay, so you would agree in at least some way, shape, or form, you said that you believe that you could support $100,000.
I support it. I didn't say I certainly support it.
And you said you believe that we need a station. You said I respectfully disagree with Mr. Beaufort. I don't care where it is. I believe we need a police station, correct?
Correct.
And what was Mr. Beaufort's plan for a police station at that meeting?
You'll have to ask Mr. Beaufort.
Well, you were there, sir.
You're right, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I'm not going to say what he said.
Okay, so we sat at this table. I was on this side, and the two of you were on that side. I said, what's your plan, Mr. Beaufort? He said, you're looking at it, right there. We're going to expand right there. We got the property. I said, how much? He said, $2 million. I said, where are you going to get that money? I thought we had a gentleman's agreement. I wasn't going to stand up here. But when you call me out as a liar, I'm going to stand up. We had a very reasonable meeting here.
I object to that. I didn't.
Okay, my mistake. You said that a flyer that came out from my foundation was misleading in a public meeting. I thought that you and I, Mr. Beaufort, sat here and talked like gentlemen, and we were going to continue that. And then I was in Wisconsin teaching, and I was told that you said that the flyer that I sent out was misleading. After I thought we had a reasonable gentleman's meeting here.
Until we see something in writing.
Okay, speaking of that, how about the email that I sent to you, Mr. Beaufort? It said the township contributes $100,000, the borough or less. The borough contributes $100,000 or less. Donor covers the rest. There was never anything about $4 million or $400,000. It is here in writing, sir. I sent it to you, and you replied, and you said, I don't think I could speak to Mrs. Verne. I think that would violate the Sunshine Law because she would say that I was violating her rights by talking to her outside of a meeting or something like that. And then I forwarded it to Mr. Beaufort 3 weeks ago, and he hasn't replied yet. You asked for me to sit and speak to you, and I did. And then you came in here and said that I was misleading to the public, instead of calling me or texting me like you've done numerous times about numerous things. Correct? Or do you want me to go into that further, sir?
I was referencing the card that went out. I don't think that I wanted to say that you were misleading. I didn't say that you were a liar. I was making a reference to what was printed on the card. And I didn't intend to slander anybody. It was all in the interest of transparency that we needed to have a conversation and we need to see something in writing so that we can move forward.
I sent you something in writing.
No, not to me. You need to do a presentation to the board, to the commission, what the building's going to be, the plans, the drawings.
Would you confirm that you've called me or texted me several times in the last few months? Or I can go further into that if you'd like. Or would you just say yes, I have?
We've had conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't understand. You asked me for a meeting the last time I was here in public. I said yes, and we sat right here and talked. I'm bringing an offer to the township and the borough for someone to cover 90% of the cost of a new police station. Chief, when's the last time there's been a juvenile in this building unsecured?
Right now.
Right now. There's a juvenile in this building. Could someone walk back here, go to the restrooms, and walk by that juvenile if they made a wrong turn? Could that lead to a lawsuit?
Privacy Act, privacy issue.
Correct. And if you have a victim of a crime in here, same thing, right?
Yeah.
There are numerous issues. I've been trying for 6 years to bring things to you. You clearly have my phone number, sir, because you've called me about other things.
That. I said I will support this building. I don't care where it is.
And every time at a public meeting, you say this and that and this and that, and apparently you say that my foundation's postcard is misleading. You have my phone number. You said you needed something. You've had my phone number since you've been on this board. Mr. Beaufort's had it for 6 years. Everyone here knows my phone number. You can find it online if you don't know it. I'm offended that we sat here and talked like gentlemen, and then you made a comment that said something that came out of my foundation was misleading, when I'm trying to do something good for the valley.
Sometimes transparency can be offensive, I guess. That's all I can say. But I was more concerned with the taxpayers in Ligonier Township than whose feelings might get hurt.
And why wouldn't you have called me like you've done for other things? We had a meeting here. We had a gentleman's meeting here. Nobody raised their voice. We talked about things. Mr. Beaufort said he wanted to spend $2 million in taxpayers' money to put a building out here. I said I have 90% of a building covered. It would cost the township $100,000 or less as opposed to $2 million. And then there was no more communication after that, although I sent emails.
I'm done talking about it now.
Oh, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking in circles. We're just going in circles. And
Okay. Well, the truth is 400,000 was never mentioned. You said that you could support 100,000. Mr. Beaufort has a plan for a $2 million building here, and I have a better building for you, bulletproof, with indoor storage for the cars, etc.
I told you I support that.
At your cost of 100,000. Then why would you say I'm misleading? You're done. I'm done, I guess.
Okay.
I'm sorry for all the time, gentlemen.
Thanks, Greg. Anybody else?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I understand this is public comment. I do have a question. I hope maybe it'll come up during tonight's meeting. If it's not going
Could
to,
you
maybe.
just do us a favor and state your name and.
I'm sorry, Wade Stoner, Laughlin Town.
Thanks.
But at the last commission meeting, there were two legal opinions presented concerning Commissioner Ross's ability to participate in essentially any decision to vote, any decision or vote. Has this issue been resolved? You know, is he capable of doing that job now or not? And if not, does that mean that the taxpayers will likely be funding yet another lawsuit so that we can gain resolution? Is that what it's going to take to resolve that?
A comment, or will we answer the question?
Feel free.
Sure. Mr. Stoner, from what I understand, there's been a formal request for an opinion from the Pennsylvania Ethics Board that was introduced, I believe, at the meeting in January. As far as from my review with counsel, the former Bar Association president who specializes in this area, he had indicated that anything regarding litigation during the pendency of any investigation by the State Ethics Board, Mr. Ross would be prohibited from participating. So because of his litigation, Mr. Ross has the right to bring a lawsuit and have that decided by a court if he wants to do that. But if he does that, that precludes him from participating in certain avenues or areas of litigation. So.
And it'll come up later, but my lawyer has filed as well with the State Ethics Board for a decision.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll stay here because I'll be real quick. Mike Strella, Township Manager. Later on the agenda, you have the November meeting. It's like usual, second Tuesday is Veterans Day. The township moved our meeting up to Monday. I cannot host on Monday because we have the rec board that day. We could host you on Wednesday, or if you want to do both meetings on Monday for the two supervisors that have to do both meetings. The borough, unless something changed, they're available to host there. Or we could host on Veterans Day if you wanted to. But, you know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, I'll opportunity later if something presents itself. Solicitor's report.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
What I have is the end of January 2025 financial report. Ending balance of the general fund as of 12/31/24, $64,251.72. Ending balance in the K-9 fund as of 12/31/24, $21,943.94. Total, $86,195.66. January 2025 revenue in the general fund, $225,085.45. January 2025 revenue in the K-9 fund, $12.04. Expenses plus payroll paid in January out of the general fund, $99,718.42. Expenses paid in January out of the K-9 fund, $2,164.68. So the general fund as of January 31st, 2025 had $189,618.75. The K-9 fund at the end of January 25, $19,791.30, for a total of $209,410.05.
Okay, we have the, do we want to approve our treasurer's report?
I'll move to approve it. As stated.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the treasurer's report. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Technically, I think the treasurer should not second it. So,
Oh, okay.
just for.
I'll remove my second.
Eric seconds it then.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You've all had a chance to look at the bills due list. Any comments, questions? Approve the bills.
Make motion to approve the bills as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved and seconded to approve our bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Chief's report.
All right, it's been a busy month, total of 521 calls entered in the system. Out of those were 415 calls actually through 901. So it's been a busy month for our guys, 10, maybe 11, 12 guys, throughout the month. So it gets a little, to catch up and make sure everything gets done. So but they're doing well. We've been busy on a lot of domestics, and we had a severe crash here on 7/11 this past week. So we're still working on all that. Attended the Chiefs meeting today. There was some good information. I would certainly like to continue trying to go to these Chiefs meetings and so forth, but just due to scheduling, I can't leave all the time. But when I do go, it's a great organization. Laurel Mountain Borough contract. It was actually given to Mayor Dixon for them to review, minus the investigative part of the old contract. Basically, we're still providing them patrol and any type of hazard reporting and so forth. So that's going to continue with this for 2025. Hopefully, maybe 2024. I believe there might be some interest of us actually taking over, but there'll be some legal paperwork to kind of like deal with them and handle calls at Laurel Mountain Borough. I always put information about our cars. You can see our cars are starting to get up in mileage. Obviously, there's information here about, moving on with the budgeted car for this coming up year. I'd like to get that moving, but we can discuss that. One concern I had was our truck had 117,000 miles. There was a four-wheel drive hub that was needed to replace rotors and brakes at $4,200. I think I'm seeing the cost of that going up on the higher mileage cars, so I'm hoping we can move forward with a new car for the officers. Several requests, action reports in January. The policy manual, actually what was there was given to the union for them to update basically all the information that was changed over, it was fixed, updated. The inserts in there are all done. There was a drug testing policy presented, and that being said, to the president, there's a letter from the union to more or less request negotiation on the drug testing policy. So I guess I would suggest at that point we probably have to get a committee together and begin those negotiations. And I've been gathering the last month or two policies to kind of see what best fits our department. Some are large departments, small departments. So we just got to pick what's best for us, and of course, in agreement with the union as well. That's most priority. So that's now begun. January 23rd and 24th, all officers attended mandatory in-service training, legal updates, which is required by MOPEC. Patrol and Hall attended the 2-week crash reconstruction, and on January 6th through the 17th, 2 weeks course, 80 hours. He completed with a certification with a 96%. So he's not here, but everyone you see Ryan, tell him congratulations. That was a very nice high score, and I think he's going to excel in that program. That is something obviously we need. We do handle those pretty often throughout the year. Officer Welch from the University of Pitt attended an active shooter training at University of Pittsburgh. So that he's continuing education, which is helps our department. And January 23rd, 25, Patrol and Drains, you attended the interview at Westmoreland SWAT. This was the final stage, and he was approved for membership. He was assigned to the first team and will begin training this month. That was announced to the Chief of Police Association that we are part of the SWAT team. So any type of situations may occur. There could be a SWAT call out or concern of safety. Officer Grazio will be called, and we can start our planning and our response through his training and through his team. And I think I do thank you, the board and commission, to allow us to move forward with that type of program. I think it's going to benefit our community to keep our officers safe, provide us training, and also keep the citizens safe as well. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations, Dan. Thank you. On to old business. The charter agreement and the code of conduct. Borough, we voted last time to send it to the borough for review. Borough has not had their meeting yet, so they have not gone over that. My suggestion, honestly, to them will be that we need to look over it like the township did, decide what we want to do, and come back with some recommendations. But we'll find out what happens with that on Thursday. Any other code of conduct or charter agreement questions, comments, concerns? This one?
I'm fine waiting for the borough to review it.
Next is new police building. We had a little bit of discussion there during public comment. Do we have any official updates on anything? Do we get any survey results back further than? Do we know? And the survey results We get anything further? No? Okay.
I believe that's continuing.
Okay. We'll update on that when we get it. All right. And then, I guess the moment we've all been waiting for, the fifth commission member. Dan and I did 7 interviews last week and this week. A lot of good interviews. We had some great people, and it's going to be a tough decision. A lot of good qualified candidates. Some of the things that I was looking for in the people that we interviewed. One, essentially financial knowledge would help us, but others were just support of the police, experience with boards and maybe police issues, and just being able to kind of keep an open mind about everything. But I can go over kind of everybody. We had, first person was Dr. James Andrews, and I'll let Dan kind of go over what he wants to as well if you'd like to speak about anyone. Dr. Andrews was an excellent interview. He's worked with law enforcement as a social worker. You can correct me if I'm wrong on anything you see back there. He wants to contribute to the community. His previous experience on some other boards, the Child Advocacy Center, which is probably a big one. Some of the questions I asked were, strengths of our police and biggest weaknesses. And strength is his connection to the community. He thinks our connection to the community with the police is great, and they're very visible. Some of the negatives were transparency of operations that kind of maybe we're not being transparent enough in what we're doing. So this is kind of our step forward from here. Try to be transparent about all our interviewees. So, but he did very well. I think he would make a great addition. Next would be John Frazier. And just wants to help be a part of the community, help out. He was a retired judge. So he has supervision experience. He had his own business as well, if I remember correctly. He supervised other judges. He was a head judge. Strong background as an investigator. One of the qualifications that I liked, he said, was his bare metal approach. He likes to be direct and plain spoken. Reputation for professionalism was part of his strengths for our police, which is excellent to hear. Some of the weaknesses, some events and impressions have given bad impressions of our department. But another question I asked people was, what do you want to see change, or what do you want to see remain the same? And one thing that I liked was John didn't have an agenda, just there to help in any way you can. Next was Scott Gongware. Scott has a wealth of experience, financial background, forensic, accounting, or auditing, the CPA, budgeting, deep dive analytical. Lots of experience with analytical finance stuff that we could certainly use. He has a sense of policy. He understands the patrolling and what goes on there because of his Loyal Hannah Board experience. Some of our strengths, our officers want to be here. The weaknesses, it's a large territory, a lot of patrols, lack of conclusions on some issues. Scott would make an excellent candidate, as we know. We've had Scott. Next was Dan Weimer. Dan, I believe, was a supervisor at one point. He's been on some other boards, Planning Commission. Some of his strengths listed was not being such a large department. It's nice that we get to know our officers. We have great community support. One of the weaknesses is communication. I think citizens are possibly not informed about what's going on. Dan could be a great one too. Next is Bob McDowell. He's 71-year resident, experience with the police, as he's been a fireman for many, many years. Worked with many police officers over those years.
He wants to bring respectability back to the commission. Deals with a lot of people. One of the strengths, response time, looks like they're doing their job. Weaknesses, things we've seen in the paper. It's a black eye for our department. Next was John Sleesman. John, retired police officer, military veteran. I think John would be an excellent candidate as well. A lot of experience with police and knowing the job. I think that's definitely a good qualification. As John says, we have dedicated officers. They're dedicated to the valley. As far as weaknesses, nothing personnel-wise. Things were good there. Maybe some other things like I think goes to the building, our evidence management system and holding cells inadequate, things like that. One of the things that stuck out with me was that John said was that we need to let Chief run the department. And that's a big thing. I think that was said a couple times. Actually, not only John said that, but it was said a few times. And last was Greg Sullenberger. Greg brings a lot of police experience as well as a retired trooper. Greg he's a part of our department. He's very dedicated to this police department. He would have to resign as an officer if he was chosen, but he would make an excellent candidate. Greg's got lots of board experience or business experience as far as doing his own foundation. He has a nonprofit, teaches trainings all the time, so he understands how we need to do things. Just good officers are guys that want to work here. We used to be a kind of a training camp, he said, but we're not anymore. And one of the biggest weaknesses right now is our morale. We're fighting some morale issues. So I think we have a lot of great candidates there. If anybody has any comments, questions, Dan, if you want to talk about anybody specific that you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said, Matt. I did narrow it down to my first, second, and third choice. My first choice is James Andrews. I appreciated, he really gave a heartfelt interview. He's dedicated to his profession. He's provided training on mental health issues and crisis intervention for police officers in Butler, Allegheny, and Westmoreland counties. And I think it's an understatement to say that that we need crisis intervention. There is a cloud over this police department. We know that. And we still don't know what's going on. But he's worked as a risk manager with UPMC, worked extensively with law enforcement, the local, county, state, and federal levels. So, board president of the Child Advocacy Center. I think it'd be a breath of just new blood coming in, new perspective, new way of thinking, different way of thinking. And I think it'd be a tremendous asset. That's why I wanted him for my first choice. Second choice was John Frazier, retired judge, obviously well-versed in legal matters. Could give a very calm perspective, I believe. His demeanor was very calm and very thoughtful. And just the fact that he's a retired judge, there isn't a whole lot that he hasn't seen or would not be able to get his hands on good facts. And lastly, my third choice is Mr. Sullenberger. I believe his strengths in police work are second to none. He would be a real benefit. And I appreciate everything that you said earlier, Mr. Sullenberger. And not my intention to offend. I'm all about transparency, and I sit up here and I'll take my shots. Or shoot at me all you want. Figuratively speaking, not literally. So those are my three choices, number 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, James Andrews. Number 2, John Frazier. And number 3, Greg Sullivan.
Okay, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'd like to give you mine 3. My first choice would be Scott Gongover because he did work with us and he has a good financial background that he knows what we're up against. That's why I would choose Scott. My second choice would be Greg Sullenberger because of his accident reconstruction experience and experience as a police officer. And my third choice would be a John Frazier because he's a judge and he's used to working with the police forces.
Okay. Personally, I think my first choice would be Scott. He did a great job for us before. As far as who my second, third would be, I honestly don't know. I don't think there's anybody of the other guys that we've talked about. I don't think there's anybody I would say wouldn't do well. I think James Andrews would do great. I think John Frazier. I think Greg Sullenberger would all do great. I think Mr. Sleeman would do a great job. What do you think, Eric?
I like what I've heard. James Andrews would be my number 1. Number 2 would be Bob McDowell, and number 3 would be John Frazier.
Any nominations?
I would nominate Scott Gongover.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded to nominate Scott Gongover. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate James Andrews.
For a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Before I vote, I'm curious why you don't like Scott with all his qualifications. I'd just like to know.
Recent events with the court decision, the illegal vote and all that, I think we need to move past that and get beyond that. And I think James Andrews would help us do that. It was an illegal vote on my decision.
It wasn't illegal. You just telling untruths. It wasn't illegal. There is no procedure. That's something we need to get in our books, is a procedure. So you can't call it illegal when it wasn't illegal.
Mr. Source, what was Judge Smale's decision?
Judge Smale issued an injunction asking that Mr. Gongover be considered during this particular time. He indicated that there was no prohibition within the charter itself that would preclude him from serving, that he was making his decision based upon what he felt was an opportunity for the new board to make a decision.
Did the newspaper not report it as being an illegal vote?
You'll have to ask the board. I just told you what Judge Smale
Okay,
said.
I mean, that's a matter for debate.
Well, I mean, regardless, I did think James Andrews gave an excellent interview. I think with his background, he'd be a great addition to the board. So my vote's yes.
My vote would be no.
Okay, so we're 3-1. So I guess Mr. Andrews, you're going to be our 5th member.
You sure you still want it?
As I said before, I got a thick skin.
We'll need it.
So you're doing it now or wait till the next meeting?
Well, actually, he's been approved. He's probably technically considered now.
Sure, take a seat. Pick a big chair. Soft chair.
Okay. So we move on to is.
The alternate is, John Booth.
No, your township alternate is John Weaver. We can have an alternate.
Oh,
Okay.
So, if Mr. Andrews is not here.
Who do we nominate?
Whoever you want.
I nominate John Booth.
John wasn't one of our.
He's a township.
He's a township supervisor. He's a township alternate.
I'll make
You're
John.
talking a public alternate.
Yes.
Okay.
Out of the group we interviewed.
Nominate John Frazier.
I'll second
Retired judge.
All right. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
that. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. John, we are alternate. John is not here. Correct. We'll let him know. All right, we're on to new business. Monthly meeting schedule. So our November meeting. As you heard Mr. Strelick say, November, we can't do it here on that Tuesday. Township is doing their meeting Monday, but we can't have here, but we can do it at the borough. You guys
On Monday, we're here.
On Monday.
On Wednesday.
Okay. I can't do Wednesday. You guys could Monday move it to the borough.
Yeah, we can go Monday.
You guys okay with that?
As long as the advertisement reflects that, sure. Make that in the motion.
So somebody, so I'll just make that a motion that we move our November meeting date to Monday, November. Monday, November 10th. To Ligonier Borough Town Hall, Council Chambers at 5 p.m.
I'll second.
That's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda was the PNC iHub authorized signers. Trish, can you give us an update on what we need to do for that? Like, what's the reason for this one?
PNC needs a motion from the meeting or a resolution, but a motion would suffice. Last meeting, Butch Bellis was put on for, the pension fund, and so then we would need Butch, and which he was already elected, but a second signee for the pension fund and for the administration. Is that right, Jim?
So anytime I have to make a payment to lock him up, I have to have it approved by one of you.
Okay. So we need a second individual. I'd be happy to take that if nobody else wants to volunteer. Anybody else want to volunteer? So we need a motion to have Butch and I be the iHub authorized signers.
And that's for the pension, correct?
Yeah. Correct, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay, that's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Dan seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next is the new car purchase and designated signee. A couple of months ago, or it was a few months ago, we authorized a new car purchase. We need somebody to be the authorized signee for that, so they have to go sign. I did it last time, I think.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what month was that? Because I would need the minutes to be authorized.
Do you remember, Tricia?
I looked through the minutes and I did not see it.
I know we discussed it during budget,
Okay.
one of our capital purchases because of our car situation. So that was one of our discussions. So I know for whenever I move forward, I need minutes to reflect that specifically on the purchase. Then I need the minutes to specifically reflect the signer. So basically, the bottom line is all five of you don't have to show up to the bank or to wherever we're involved. You know what I mean? Town of country. So one person just needs to sign.
Right. No, it was on, it has to be, it says it was approved with the 2025 budget, so would it be like
November.
October, November?
Yeah.
November.
We can go
We
back.
talked about it, so we'll go back and look at November,
Okay.
but get you the minutes.
Okay. And if it's not there,
Then,
then can these minutes reflect that possibly?
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking right now. I'll put it in this month's meeting.
Well, just stated.
do we need a motion and approve it?
You do.
It's okay.
You do. Just to verify that the authority is.
I'll make a motion that we approve the car purchase for minutes pending that it somehow wasn't in November's.
Correct.
Or
Sounds great.
previous minutes. So that's a motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Now we have to do this, is that for the signature too?
We didn't appoint anybody to sign.
Okay.
Any volunteers? I'd be happy to do it again too.
I nominate Matt.
Okay.
How many do you need? Two?
Just one. Just one. Just as long as everyone approves that, so we don't have to have all five of you.
All right, it's, so moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
Trish, what about all the signature cards? Is that something we needed to, do they all need to go and do signature cards though, for sure, right?
I think we were waiting for the fifth member
I got it.
names.
Okay.
And then we will have to present the minutes to Somerset. And yes, there will be a couple people coming off. And then we will have to, put a couple, to replace those two.
Right.
So,
And I think they want all new signatures from everybody. Okay. Something we can just do next month, just prepare for next month. Okay. I just thought maybe we clarify it now, get it done, or wait till next month. It was a full new signature card, when we're talking about the banking, that came up. Yeah, we just gotta do it all again, so I just wanna make sure he can reflect now, but we'll wait till next month.
Next was the QuickBooks Administrator. So with Stephanie on here, she had our last QuickBooks license. She no longer needs that license. One of us needs it to be able to do our QuickBooks. Typically, the treasurer would do it. Dan doesn't have any QuickBooks experience.
I talked to Tricia and she's willing to take it.
Tricia can take it, but honestly, it's not in her duties. It's not in her job description. If we want to give her more hours a week, I think that might be.
I think it's gonna be needed for her to allow that, and I know where we are, I know we're tough on the budget, but, she's gonna be doing, that's gonna be a lot of data entry, a lot of keeping track. I think her hourly cost should reflect that as well. And she's gonna take on, as we know, that's a job in itself.
Tricia, how many more hours do you think that would add to what you do?
well, I think more importantly, what I'd like you guys to do, to decide on is to update the job description.
Mhm.
Because the job description doesn't reflect really anything other than the bill pay list. So the QuickBooks administration, we had, sort of jotted down some things with the treasurer that we were getting. QuickBooks would be reconciling the accounts at the end of the month. Stephanie reconciled all the QuickBooks accounts. She had the administrative level. So Trish Levander, who does some of the data entry for us, is unable to get in and reconcile those books because she doesn't have the administrative level. So if you're giving that to me, I would have to reconcile the books and, make sure that that was all done every month and provide any kind of balance information or anything like that. So that would just have to be added to my job description. And if that's it, if that point, the QuickBooks administration point is it, I think it's probably going to be 25 hours per week instead of this 20.
You're currently at 20, okay.
I'm
So
currently
another
at 20.
5 hours.
Now, would you share that license with Tricia Levander?
That license.
Or just access to it?
I don't think you could share it. I think
No,
there's
you
problems.
can't share it, but once you get the only one person can have the administrative access because it locks down the accounts so that we already have.
I guess I'm not saying it.
We already have layers, like Jan takes care of our payroll,
Yeah.
she takes care of our retirement. Trish Levander takes care of the accounts within our general account. Myself, I take care of the invoices. And, Mike and I work on making sure that those invoices are accurate, that they're within budget, all that type of thing. So there's layers, and that was developed so that because of our unique situation as a regional police force, that everybody, you might say that there's too many hands in the pot, but that everybody, from the borough to the township to the police department, is in full understanding of what's going on financially. So while Jan can take care of the payroll and the retirement, she is not able to access the main account, or she's able to sweep it, but she's not able to put anything in. Trish Levander is locking down those accounts. She's looking to see where things go and making sure that that's all accurate. And myself, up until this point, was just bill pay and truly administrative support for chief and the guys and that type of thing. So what Stephanie was doing is kind of having an overseeing role, and that's only one, we can add more access to QuickBooks at a higher rate, but there is only one administrative level, and I'm not sure that you can add any more than one, but I don't know that. But that's how ours is set up. There's just one administrative level, and nobody is going to be able to do other than what their main duties are.
One question I guess I have is, are you capable of serving in that particular capacity? You have the training.
I have the training for QuickBooks. My background, I do have QuickBooks training. What I don't have the training for, and what Stephanie did do, and that is up to treasurer, the finance committee, is budget analysis, is all those things that we talked about, that Butch and Matt, you talked about with Scott. That is a CPA or an accounting thing, where they're analyzing the budget, they're making budget projections. When I look at the QuickBooks is a bookkeeping position. That's what I am. I'm a bookkeeper. I'm an administrative assistant. When you talk about a budget analysis, that's more of a treasury position. That's somebody that's overseeing. That's an oversight, seeing where the deficits are, where we might need to work each month to maybe make sure our invoices are coming in, or making sure that our payroll's met because maybe an SRO invoice didn't get put through. That's the kind of thing that's out of my wheelhouse, those analysis, and then that ultimately goes into the budget planning at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So.
That's how we run it in the township. Basically, you provide the numbers and then we budget those numbers from the finance side, Butch and I and Dan.
And that's why, to me, it's really important that I get a new job description stating, I don't want to tell you that I can do more than I can. I can't. But I can do the QuickBooks administrative bookkeeping end of it, if that is what you're looking for. But as far as the analysis, that's, that is not something that I've done or that I can do.
The other thing I would suggest is, because this is a job description that had to be rewritten, and because this is new, I would ask that you keep track of your hours, because you're entering something new. Obviously, this is uncharted territory. We don't know. I guess in the past, we didn't have to worry about that, but because of circumstances, it's something we're going to have to consider.
So if we consider giving that license to Tricia, I think we should at least add, 6 hours for her. She said 5, but, give her a buffer, allow her up to 26 hours a week to take care of that extra task we're giving her. And Tricia, we'll sit down and sometime I'll come out and we'll go over your job description and we'll look at it and update it, and we'll bring it back to the meeting for approval.
Do you need a motion to that?
Yeah, let's go.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to move our QuickBooks license to Tricia for her to use. All in favor?
Also, you have to add the job description.
And update the job description, giving her 6 more hours. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Last was the PA State Ethics Commission. Before we get into this, it did not get posted in time, so we'd have to make a vote to be able to discuss it. Is that correct? That's what you were telling me?
Yeah, I think you need to vote to amend the agenda to add something to the agenda. It's allowed in specific cases, like something that came up within 24 hours, and it wasn't posted.
Is there going to be any action on this?
Again, my understanding, no, there isn't.
Okay.
I don't know that this qualifies, Mr. Charlotte, as an emergency, because this existed for.
Correct, it's not an emergency. The other two are, it's de minimis, you're not spending money and not entering into contract.
Right.
I thank everyone.
Yeah.
So there's no action being taken, so we can go ahead if somebody's got a comment or something on this.
Mr. Ross had mentioned that his counsel, in addition to leave, Mr. Member had requested relief on this particular aspect.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear something from somebody. Sure.
So we hear back from them? Well, I'm sure they're gonna vote.
All right, I don't believe we need anything for executive session.
We do not.
Okay, any more public comment at this point?
Yeah, I have one. Sorry for my ignorance, but I thought earlier.
We have your name, please.
Oh, yeah, Bill Wolford, Ligonier Borough. I thought, Mr. Solicitor, you said earlier that because of the ethics ruling you got, that Mr. Ross would have to exclude himself from any voting and those kind of things. Did I misunderstand that?
As relates to litigation.
That's related to the litigation only, and there were personnel?
Personnel involving, because of the nature of the litigation that has been filed and that exists, it involves certain officers. So if there would be a personnel decision that would affect one of the officers who is the subject of this lawsuit, Mr. Ross could not participate in any personnel decision.
Okay, so I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but by voting as he did to vote this next gentleman onto the board, he has in effect had a vote about the personnel, because this gentleman on the board will have input as to what happens to those personnel.
Well, not exactly. He would have to, Mr. Ross would have to exclude himself. You would theoretically have a tie because there's 2-2.
No, excuse me, the vote to get the new gentleman on the board.
No, if there's a personnel decision that would involve one of the officers, Mr. Ross would have to recuse himself. So because of the recusal, you have a 2-2 theoretical tie.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand. It wouldn't have made a difference because it was a 3-1 vote. It would have made it 2-1. I just was curious because of the way, like what you had said. I misunderstood or didn't completely understand. Okay, thank you.
Can I interrupt 1 minute? Ryan, I acknowledge Ryan, he's here. That is a heck of a defeat, what he did, passing that class. There's very few across the state, and there was in your class, some didn't make it, and he scored high. I just want to acknowledge this is Ryan.
So Greg Sullivan, Township President, totally different topic this time. Good stuff. To bounce off what Chief just said. I was a collision investigation training coordinator for the Pennsylvania State Police for about 7 years. I taught the reconstruction class. There are not many classes that police officers fail, and I'm not proud to say this, but people fail the reconstruction class. It's a hard class. I believe the required percentage to pass is 80, and a lot of people get in the 80s. To get 96 is not just pretty good, it's pretty impressive in my mind, and I used to teach the class. I taught for state police, I taught state and municipal officers, I now teach for the University of North Florida. It's the class that people unfortunately regularly fail. It's a tough class. So 96 is very, very impressive.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. Great job, Ryan.
You couldn't go a meeting without Dan Stevens talking, that's for sure. Hey, everything I'm going to ask is probably has no real impact on anything, but question on the fifth public board member on your council, is that a voting position?
Yeah.
It's 100% voting position. Okay, so your November meeting would not have been improper for Mr. Ligonier to vote that meeting. Next, we had the passing of a former Ligonier Township Police Chief in the past couple of days, and I think it needs to be made aware to everyone here on the council. You might not know him, but Glenn Welshon's passed away over the weekend. And Glenn was the police chief here for quite some time, and I just want to make sure that he got recognition at this forum for the job that he did here. He was, in my dispatch days, one of the most unique police chiefs we ever have. So just remember Glenn Welshon in the next couple of days. I appreciate that. Lastly, as the chief said earlier, you have a lot of calls over the past month. And a lot of these calls, I listen to them because I can't do a whole lot anyway, and I have a scanner. I recommend anybody that thinks the police don't do anything, go out and buy themselves a scanner. It's a $600 investment, but it's worth the money. Some recent things that have happened, one that brings to mind, an open door at one of the local businesses in town. Sergeant Fiscarella was on scene within a minute of that being dispatched. So when they say it takes a long time for our police to get there, I don't know what they're doing, but for some reason they know where the calls are and they're there right away. The other thing was, I believe it was last Monday or so, there was a landslide down on Route 30, which happens all the time. And Route 30 was partially blocked. Two of our officers and an assist by one of our patrol officers from Law Hannah went out and were assisting people changing their flat tires. Instead of wasting time for a tow truck to come or wasting time for AAA to come, they were the ones out there doing the grunt service. And I feel that people don't hear the good things that these guys do. And these guys and girls that we have in our department are ones that definitely step up to the plate and do what's necessary and deserve each and every one of our respect. Because I know in a snowy, rainy night, I sure as hell ain't going to be changing somebody's tire, and these guys did it. I just want to give them a little bit of credit, Chief. I'm sure you can mention their names. I believe D'Andrazio was one. The off-duty officer was Ryan Hall, and our Law Hannah officer that is a Ligonier Valley police officer, Mr. Hakel. They deserve our round of applause for stepping up and above what they're doing.
Good evening, my name is Laura Edgerly. I'm a 4-year resident of Ligonier Township. And I really love living here. I wanted to speak about something that I just witnessed tonight, and it reflects back to a couple meetings ago when Stephanie was closing out the books and some things were brought up that she said, well, we'll have to find some savings to cover this and savings to cover this. I don't know exactly what they were, but and I experienced tonight, what I just witnessed tonight was a new member going on to the board, which is fine, but the consideration of the treasurer experience should have been put into that before. So now we've just added cost by pushing that treasurer's duties onto someone we have to pay after Stephanie left. I don't know the conditions of that, but she left and she said we have to find cost savings and we need somebody who can oversee a lot of the treasurer's duties, and now we have spent money on doing that outside of your board when you had the ability to do it within the board in the past. So I just saw something happen that was a little upsetting, and maybe we should consider that. Laura Edgerly. Laura Edgerly, Edgerly. So maybe that could be reviewed.
Appreciate that, thank you.
I got one last comment. It's about the police building. I guess the biggest question is, as I stated, this is a concept, and the old building that was presented that failed several years back is being revisited in its entirety. Now, obviously, a donor, a philanthropist, or whomever can't force a building on you all. They can't force it on the township or the borough. But I know Greg is very passionate about this, and he's been working it since it failed before. I'm going to continue to help him. I've got decades of commercial and residential development, construction experience. We're going to take the old plans, we're going to look at it, we're going to update numbers, look at what's involved in that building, and come up with some better details. The commitment is that once we have details, once we have better information, that we will share that with you all. Not as a demand that you accept it, but as a draft that we can talk about and move forward. My hope is that this concept, and I'm sure you've all seen it, I'm hoping that you would all agree that you would commit to supporting this concept, particularly if we're able to make it where it's zero cost to the taxpayers. And again, we don't have the details. If we had them, we'd provide them. I know Stephanie mentioned at the last township meeting that she needs this, she needs this, she needs this. We don't have any of that yet. You can imagine you take a building, a 9,000 square foot building from 6 years ago, bring it forward, you know the costs are going to change. We don't know what those are, but clearly they're going to go up. But again, the concept and the people that made commitments before are willing to sit down with us and talk about a commitment, even knowing that the cost will be higher. So my hope is that if you know what this concept is and what we're starting, do each of you support it? Again, I know we don't have numbers, but do you support a new police facility for the reasons that we've stated here to improve this department and what it can provide to the community?
You're asking me.
That's the question.
Yeah. Of course.
I've said that repeatedly. Yes, I support
Obviously, pending the finances, I think it's a foregone conclusion. The physical plan isn't adequate. And the chief and the police need a better physical plan to do their job. And I could go down the list from my own experience.
Right.
But clearly, a new facility is needed. The question is, doing it in a financially responsible way and redesigning an existing facility to the chief's specifications. He's the expert.
Absolutely.
He needs to tell us what he needs to do his job.
Chief has been involved with us as we've been discussing.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I mean, if we can have, the same thing I was involved with Ligonier Beach, financing available and, fitting the needs that the community has. This building down here was an add-on with the police, which we understand. Plus, our police force was much smaller back then when we were the township only. We didn't have 24/7 police force until, probably 20 years ago we added it on, something like that. So we didn't have coverage Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, midnight shifts. So that's an afterthought. I worked with the state police a lot when I was with the fire company. But yes, I think that, looking at this, growing this, Mike, one thing I'll add is, the amount of vehicles we have out there. We've rid of some of that old stuff.
We are some days, and I know when people run around, they might see cars here. There's some days we have 0 cars.
Okay.
We've actually been down to.
Just curious what the cost, because I see the cost of maintenance on some of those older vehicles.
And that's where I'm hoping, that's where I'm like, I gotta start the rotation more often than what we have started. And that's why I run the oldest car, to stop getting beat, to keep that as a backup, because I've had to give my car up because we're down. And we're down to nothing. There's some days there's not a car out here.
But to answer your question, yes. And the biggest thing I'm looking at, and we're, you know, and I can speak from the township standpoint because I am on the finance committee, and you know, we're maintaining. I wouldn't say that we're knocking it out of the park when it comes to budgets and finance, just due to the fact that costs have increased, and we understand that. We're gonna face, with the police board here, additional costs, because officers' salaries keep going up, cost of vehicles keep going up, cost of maintenance keeps going up. So, you know, that's all to look at, but yes, I agree that we need to look at that, and if we can get financing, Scott, I know you know the right people to talk to, so get us Ligonier Diamond.
Well, that's what the concept is all about. And I don't want to speak for Greg, but I think he's still passionate and he'll still participate, and I'll be in it as well. But when we have more details, things that are ready to be shared, again, we're not shoving it down anybody's throat. It's a collaborative thing, and we understand that, especially with the chief involved. So I guess my only ask then is, knowing that this is a concept and it's in process, at your request, if you want to get an update, or you obviously, a lot of you know how to get hold of me, and I think you know how to get hold of Mr. Sullenberger. We'll update you as much as we can when we have more information, but
Are you the one that gets the survey results? Where do those?
I honestly don't know where they come in.
You get them?
We can find. Yeah, we can.
You get them.
Yeah, we can get online and get them.
Okay. Next month, maybe we can have something.
We can do that.
But again, I understanding this is collaborative, and you know, we're not going to do anything that is not going to be shared with you guys. We can't. You know, it's just not possible. But again, Dan, you Mr. Transparency, you did misspeak on this, but you did because it's a concept.
I disagree with that, but I appreciate
But if
your
you
opinion.
want, but if you want transparency,
Yeah.
to Mr. Sullenberger's point, ask the source the question. When you put it out in public, it sheds a horribly bad light on so many things, and we don't need any more negativity here. So my ask is, ask us directly. We'll share what we have. We're holding nothing back. Full transparency.
I just wish Mr. Buford were here, but he's not, because, well, that's enough said.
Well, the 90-10 concept is, again, that's a philanthropist concept. That didn't come about by saying, hey, let's see if we can do this if we can get 10% from the township and the borough. That's what Greg was talking about, and he was talking also conceptually, would you contribute? That's not any part of the people that we're talking to that it
Until we
needs
see
to say.
something in writing, so that's what we need, and
Well, we're not even close to that, so I understand. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And to be clear, the results of those surveys go to a company that gets reported to the PD, right?
Right.
It's not the PD tabulated, and we wanted, again, transparency. It's a standalone agency that's getting the results of that that form, and then it comes, the police can request that.
Another quick question about that before you jump in. Can we get a link to that on our new website so that if somebody didn't get it in the mail, is it there?
I will ask Sean about doing that. I think we can, let's see if we can do that.
I rarely ever look at my mail. I probably never even saw it.
And that happened a lot. A lot of people, I do find out a lot of people didn't get them. They just ask me about it.
So a link to it. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, Linda O'Sullivan. I live in the borough. First, my memory's bad anymore, but either I was told it or I read it in the newspaper about a police officer speaking at the end of last month's meeting, but unfortunately due to weather I had already left. And the police officer who underwent and did very well, really outstanding training, asked if it was going to be continued to be supported. And in his statement, as I was told or read, he stated that he had a lot of his personal money tied up into equipment he needed to complete the course. If that is true, I have a major problem with that. Police officers should not pay a dime for needed things to complete trainings, to keep themselves safe, or to keep citizens safe, or to complete their job. Most of my family is police officers. Now, given New York City probably has a tad more money than our police department in their annual budget, but police officers, just like our military, must have what they need to do a good job. So if that's true, and gee, you all talked about budget crunch, so I'm sure you don't want to hear this, but if our officers are willing to take on additional training to keep us safe and make us a strong department, they need to be supported morally and fiscally. Thank you.
I don't want to speak for Dan, but
I'll explain that real quick.
Thank you.
So I think it was the overall concern and question that obviously the community, obviously a lot of people showed up and was concerned about what's the future of us. And he was all willing to be here, but if the future was going to be dim or clouded, I got money to this. I want to go forward. I want to do training. I'm here. And I think that was his comment, concern. Okay. But he does have money put into his program because he really loves and thinks it's the best program, and he's the person for it. But we do have actually donations that bought a lot of his equipment so far, and also the SWAT organization supplied $30,000 worth through like Region 13 and different programs. But he did get some money for his uniforms, and I think we would like to gain a little more money for training. So we're always asking for those donations for SWAT, identified for SWAT as well. Just like the K-9 program, receives, we're still receiving also SWAT money as well. And the Legion, actually, we're leading up that endeavor to help us, going out, flyers, talking to people, and that's where a lot of our money's been coming from.
Can I ask that now that you have your new website, as well as throwing out to social media or in the new, I'm one of the few people that still reads the newspaper, I think, have needs known, asking for contributions, because as you know, this is a very generous community, and certainly I can speak for my husband and myself that we would contribute to that.
See if we can put a link on that or somehow, or explain what could be donated to specifically, and we can put that on there, I'm sure. And that website is going to continue growing, and that's actually great, Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So we have it in the paper all the time. I think the K-9 actually has a thing added in the paper.
I did see the K-9.
So, and that's been a constant support. Like, I'm sitting down at Somerset Trust one day, and some lady just handed me a check. She goes, "Hey, Mike, here's for the K-9." So I had to go and, process that check, and I was just down there on my personal business, She hands me a check for $25 for the K-9, just out of the blue, So that continues, and that's a great idea. We will work on that.
Okay. Yeah, because when I heard it, which I don't remember years ago, and I had a little hissy fit at the borough council meeting before I became a really calm person, over borough councilman attacking Randy Cox, God bless his soul, beating him up because he went to training or a conference and they wanted him to pay for everything. And I was horrified by that. So.
I don't remember that, but
yeah. Well, it was after we moved here, and you came to my house, and you came walking up the street, and my husband looked out the window and said, "What have you done now?"
I just tell one thing. We got a really nice attaboy letter for a situation that police officers handled. I won't talk about it much because it's pretty private. Our guys are doing an excellent job. Jimmy Piscarella and Cody. So they handled it very well. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Any other comments from the board?
I just want to add to the donations and budget. The previous board was projecting a $70,000 deficit for this year. So donations, anything that can be done, According to Stephanie, she was hoping that grants and donations this year would pick up. If not, we'll be working diligently to get the budget back on board, which we'll have to approach with the borough and of course the township for that. But nothing was brought to the township for needing of new monies for this year, for 2025, because I was on the finance committee. So, but if that is needed, just an FYI that we are projected a $70,000 deficit for this year with the police. So donations, grants will be greatly appreciated.
Anybody else?
Matt, I'm just gonna put this, I will make sure that by the next meeting we have the statistics. I wanted to say that some of that deficit is just a timing issue of our installments.
Moving over
And what it looks like. So Steph was always super transparent of saying, okay, this looks like a deficit, but we aren't getting a check until the following year. Things don't always happen, obviously, year by year, but I can verify that and get the actual amount.
Thank you. Yes. I will take the motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.